Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the time's up for the think tanks now. I hope you've enjoyed them and had good discussions. We've cut them a little bit short because the previous presentation ran over a little bit. Just getting into the meat of it. Okay, I'll come to you last. But then you've got to be respectful and listen to the other people. So I just wanted to, I hope you've enjoyed them. I hope you found the discussions useful. What I wanted to do was just go over to the leaders of the think tanks, just to give a quick 2-minute, 5-minute overview of what was discussed, so others who weren't able to attend your think tank could understand what was discussed. So over here I'd like to go to looking at electric vehicles and the evolution of logistics to Vegard.
Hi Louis, thank you very much. So we talked about the EV evolution of logistics, and after a while we got around to talking about how electrical vehicles and increased demand and all the issues and opportunities around this can affect a little bit of logistics and also on the consumer side and our industry in general. So what we started out talking about is how this will directly affect our logistics operations. We mentioned that by the increased EVs, we will also see an increased energy demand, which will probably be hard to handle in the future. We will see electric trucks who can operate at a more or less successful way. We will see problems with battery disposals, which we as logistic companies might be able to help out with. And in the long run, we'll have to try to combine the price compared to utility for electrical vehicles if we're gonna use them both on the logistics side and for consumers in general. We had a long discussion around everything, and I think in the end we ended up with saying that the most important things for the EV evolution of logistics will be how information system combined with the electronic vehicles will demand. We think maybe that systems will develop faster than the EV technology. So there might be some issues to take up there. Battery issues and security was definitely mentioned as important topics. But ultimately, like where the EV evolution of logistics and the EV evolution in general goes will be a lot based on the customers, the consumers, what they want, and I guess for customers also as the car makers, what do they need from logistics service providers compared to thinking about the EV evolution of logistics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vegard. Thank you. An interesting discussion, and obviously you raised a few points there about the benefits of electric vehicles and how we're going to use the technology in there to help us with logistics as well. So next we're going to look at packaging and overcoming the fear factor for changing strategies. Over to Sharon Gray from CHEP. Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. Yeah, I think the one thing that was consistent with the group here is that there is fear of change and just the human nature effect of it all. And I think it stems based on the conversation that, don't do anything to stop the production line. And so that fear trickles down and people are a little bit leery of sticking their neck out and making that change. But there was a presentation earlier today about from the gentleman with Molly Bear, and he put some numbers up that were very convincing and significant cost avoidance numbers. And so in order to achieve that, there has to be some type of a change. And I think the consensus was that you find someone, a champion internally within the company, you start small, you trial something, you do a proof and concept. There might not be immediate payback from that trial, but certainly, at least it allows you to get internal buy-in to be able to move forward with something. I don't know that we have all the answers, but that was as far as we got.
Thank you very much, Sharon. So it's worth taking the risk, but you might have to do it slowly and do trials to get the buy-in. So this time we're looking at intermodal. Mr. Rand, Steve Rand from Hub Group.
Thank you, Louis. So we had a good discussion. I think at first it starts with kind of the geographic map. I've done a lot of work over the years with IHS. They have a lot of great metrics in automotive, and they've got a map that shows 2007 versus 2017. And in 2007, in North America, 65% of the cars are built north of Ohio. By 2017, there'll be about 35% built north of Ohio. So where are they going? Obviously, we know about Mexico going from 2 to 5 million, but they're also going to right-to-work states in the southeast. So if you start to think about the geography of potential highway to intermodal conversion, it sort of starts with Mexico and the southeast. Volvo's building a new plant there, and there's a number of plants down there. I think the other things you have to think about is there's truck capacity out there now, but there's also safety and diversification. So we've got mega trends in the trucking industry with hours of service, ELD requirements coming in next year. We might lose some truck capacity in the neighborhood of maybe 3 to 5%. We talked about Hanjin and the demise of Hanjin, and customers wanting not only automotive, but other types of verticals wanting to transload from ISO boxes and control their intermodal destiny. And really, the cost benefit of running intermodal direct to plants, bypassing warehouses, and really, the whole diversification of the supply chain and the footprint.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Steve. Interesting, the change in geography there and the important role that intermodal is going to play. This one we'll look at autonomous vehicles. So I was going to send the microphone over here on its own, but it didn't work. So.
Sorry, I just caught that. We had a great group, and we talked about the effect of autonomous vehicles in the supply chain, and the first thing that we did was lay some groundwork that we weren't just talking about self-driving cars, that in fact we think the initial applications will be in the supply chain itself. And one of our colleagues here from the Netherlands spoke of a container terminal. The traditional port has about 9,000 associates working, loading the containers onto the ships, unloading. 2 new ports have opened in the past few years, and they are completely automated with about 100 associates in each. So when you think about the profound difference that that makes, and then we talked about, we have people from different areas in the supply chain, and so when we were talking about self-driving cars, I asked our friends from the rail, well, do you care if it's a self-driving car or just a regular car? It still goes, and they said, well, no, that's what we're worried about. Why doesn't the car drive off the line to the dealer or to the ramp or to the ultimate consumer? So Tesla doesn't have a dealer network. They're not licensed to sell cars in Michigan. What if you buy your car on the internet, comes off the line and drives itself to your house? Obviously, there's some issues about regulation and titling and so forth, but we had kind of a nice science fiction group that was imagining the future. And it's one of those things that you look at and you say, if you think of the cost of delivering that vehicle versus that vehicle delivering itself, we know that OEMs will do many things to make dollars per mile cost reduction happen. So is it really that far-fetched? So we had a very lively discussion. We think it'll happen on the commercial side first because there's less risk and more control. There were some studies that showed autonomous trucks might deliver savings of $1 a mile. So everybody in trucking, next time your customer asks for $1 a mile reduction, you can do it. I'm sure we'll split that cost with you. But we see that it's not a question of when, of if, but when.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not even sure there is science fiction anymore. I don't think we can even imagine what the future is going to be like. Just think the changes are so huge, they're leaps more than anything. But now to the aftermarket and service parts. Tom Krosweck from Ryder.
Thank you, Louis. We first started off with some discussions around packaging support in Canada in support of some Magna initiatives. So we had some discussion about that, and then we were joined from Mike from the Toyota group. And we kind of extended some of the discussions we had earlier around the service parts discussion, but we also drifted into some of the aftermarket activities. So there's big competition, aftermarket providers compared to the service providers, and how can the OEs compete against that? So some of the thoughts we had were around different fulfillment methodologies, different delivery methodologies, so different size of vehicles, remote locations where we might store product that can be delivered within hours to the dealerships, and those independent repair facilities. That's the other market that's open out there for the OEs that is really being attacked by the aftermarket providers. Talked a little bit also about 3D printing and its current application in the automotive environment. It's currently quite a ways off. I know in the heavy-duty truck industry, it's thought that it's much closer, but in the automotive industry, it's still not at a point where it's really applicable. So those are some of the things we talked about.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you, gentlemen. I might skip this group, but I don't think they were talking about anything really, so. Thank you, Paul from DSV.
Well, we were Paul Forberg, DSV. We had a very dynamic discussion about capturing cost savings. We know that OEMs require somewhere between 5 to 10% cost downs every year, and that naturally pushes upon the logistics community. So we were thankful to have Volkswagen and Honda at our table, and we took up a little bit more real estate, so I guess there's a lot of demand for this cost savings topic, Louis. So, but we put it into two buckets. There's commodity buying in logistics, and everybody knows there's kilos, TEUs, and there's cost per mile, cost per kilometer, depending upon where you are in the world. But the other element of it that is critical is cost avoidance. And cost avoidance really goes down to utilization, optimization. So we talked about what are the internal metrics or what are the internal cost models that people use internally when trying to show to their finance or senior management that they have indeed delivered cost savings. In turn, that goes to the commercial team, and that gets delivered to the OEM saying, hey, look it, we increased a load factor or utilization in a truckload by 10%, and that ended up being $500,000 of cost avoidance by having fewer truckloads or fewer miles driven. So it was very dynamic. It was great to have the OEMs here to provide a little coaching. And I think the conclusion is the jury's still out, or every company uses a little bit different metrics and internal cost models in order to articulate or show those cost savings internally and ultimately to the end customer. So thanks, Louis. It was very positive.
Thank you very much, Paul. Who would have thought that cost saving would actually be an important subject for car makers? I'm really surprised. I'm shocked. But I do hope that you enjoyed the think tanks and got value from them. By all means, we're stopping for a coffee break now. By all means, carry on your discussions or carrying them on afterwards. Share them, exchange business cards, link with each other on LinkedIn. Join our groups on LinkedIn, and it's a community. So and use us if there's anything that came out of your discussions. We've made the notes, but if there's anything that you want to run by us, if you want news stories, if you think we should cover articles on any of your subjects, please let us know so we can continue to develop what happens here. But I hope you've enjoyed the think tanks. Join us for a coffee and a quick last-minute round of the stands, and come back in here at around 4, I think for 4:15 kickoff for the final round-up session. Thank you very much, everyone.